I'm Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Mike, and welcome aboard to our brand new podcast called Taking Off with Mike and Jen.
In this podcast, we will be diving in and unpacking all the baggage, anything from communication to finances, family dynamics, expectations, and what it looks like to fight or flight.
We have 32 years of marriage and a lot of Christian counseling under our belts. So no matter where you find yourself, whether that's being single, dating, engaged, or married, this podcast is just for you.
Are you ready to take your relationships to new heights?
If so, sit back, relax. We have been cleared for takeoff. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard flight number 12. This is my lead flight attendant, Jennifer.
Hello.
And she's crazy. You probably already know this if this is your first time joining us. Thanks for joining us. The subject today is outside forces. How do outside forces affect your relationship? And as you know, if you sit and spend 10 minutes thinking about what was the last fight we had? What was the last interruption we had? What about the last one before that, and before that, and before that? Most cases, it's outside forces. Now, in the aviation world, since we're both in the aviation world,
yeah, give your good example.
Here's an example. There's a crew of 15, right, on my airplane. There's 4 pilots. Sometimes there's 2, at least 11 or 12, 13 flight attendants. So you have this big crew, and everybody's working together like a little family, right? Everything's fine. And then what happens? Bad passengers. Had it on my last flight. Had some passengers complaining because they didn't get their pizza. And so the flight attendants start getting, riled up about that. Some flight attendants might think it's not a big deal that the passenger is upset. Other flight attendants do think it's a big deal the passenger upset. You have bad weather. What's the deal with the weather? What about maintenance problems? What about different company policies? All the crew members handle all these things completely differently. And it just adds stress because what might not be stressful to me might be stressful to my co-pilot. What might not be stressful for Jennifer, vice versa with another flight attendant. And so then all of a sudden you start getting this grinding effect. And that's no different in a relationship with your spouse or your person you're dating or your fiance. You guys are fine on a deserted island. It's when the brother calls. It's when the mother-in-law calls. It's when work says, hey, you got to stay another 3 hours. Oh, by the way, you're going to get transferred to another city. Outside forces cause, absolutely.
A friend can call and you guys disagree on how you should handle the situation with a friend.
Absolutely. The list goes on and on. Here,
and we could go forever.
I mean, we have written down here, immediate family, extended family, kid issues, sibling issues, job issues, health issues, past mistake issues, friend issues, car issues, financial issues.
On and on.
You could talk an hour. We could talk an hour.
Easy.
About each one of those subjects. And every single story would be fun and crazy and just a weird example of how these things come in and just derail you.
Yep. So do you want me to, I'll just tell a little bit.
Tell us some stories.
So this is just what happened recently. And this has been something we've been dealing with for a very long time, since even...
For 34 years that we've known each other, this has been a deal.
So this literally just happened last week. And the way we handled it this time, and each time it gets better than the way we used to handle it.
Oh, yeah.
Because of learning and fighting and working through it.
Communicating through it.
But we wake up one morning last week, my phone starts ringing, we're relaxing, we both got home from trips, we were having a cup of coffee in bed, going through our phones, and all of a sudden my phone rings, and I see, Riverside County Jail facility. So instantly my stomach is sick, and I already know that it's my brother who is back in jail. And, it just... It shifts, and it's like a constant wound that keeps opening when these issues constantly or continually happen throughout your lifetime. And so in the past, I had a counselor that said this to me perfectly. If you break your wrist, it heals. You heal. It's better. You make it stronger, right? But then you're in an elevator, a really crowded elevator, and it's so crowded and someone just jabs your wrist by accident because they're trying to squeeze in there. And it doesn't re-break it, but it does injure it. It hurts you. And it's the best analogy for past things because your wrist will hurt and you're like, that hurt. And in that moment, you remember, you go backwards and you remember what happened, why it hurt, how you fixed it, blah, blah, blah. And it's the same thing with our heart, with our baggage. Things happen and it reopens the wound. So, obviously, I've dealt with these wounds. I've dealt with these issues, gone to a lot of counseling for them. We've learned a lot through them, but they still take you back. They still kind of take you back. So that happened last week. And in the past, we would have fought, most cases, on how we'd handle things differently because, again, his intention is he wants to protect me, but everything he's saying for me to do with my brother, I don't want to do because he's my brother, no matter what kind of junk he's doing. Drugs, drinking, getting in jail, stealing cars, not just the going down the wrong path. I still want to protect him because he's my baby brother. And he isn't, even though he loves my brother, he isn't, he wasn't raised with him. So he doesn't have the wounds. So he can look at it objectively and be like, I want to help Jennifer deal with this. So this is how I would do it. And then we would get in these huge fights because his opinion of how we should handle my brother and my opinion were vastly different. So
Fortunately, you've come around.
Oh, yeah, I'm way better. I don't give him money. Yeah, I don't bail him out of jail. I don't do those things. And he has become much more compassionate, more supportive. And just he understands, So we've come far. And that just happened last week. So in the past, that outside force would have caused us some problems. And basically what it did for that day, though, even when I found out, I'm just kind of like, not quite myself. I'm a little depressed. My stomach kind of hurts all day. The whole day is taken up with my mind of all the scenarios, and, you kept getting hung up on because you can only have 2-minute phone calls. And I'm putting money on a credit card so he can call me from jail so I can get the whole story. That's not working. It throws your whole day into a tornadic tailspin. So.
And it's the reoccurring nightmare. It's the pattern that hasn't stopped in 34 years.
Yeah.
And, you get sick of it. I do too. Get totally sick of it. I don't have a little baby brother that I hung out with, so I don't have those feelings there. I just have facts.
Uh-oh.
I have the facts.
I
have the facts that you're a 50-something-year-old man and this is happening to you and these problems, you are bringing them on yourself. Not to say there aren't wounds there and deep hurts that he has in why he always goes to this bad place. Mm-hmm. But the fact is he's bringing these things onto himself. And so, until he goes and gets help for those wounds and those hurts, then he is going to continue in this path of drugs, bad mistakes, jail, etc. And Jennifer, unfortunately, just sees this little 10-year-old kid that was hurt by divorce and abandonment. And you lived through it. Exactly.
So, like when in the past flights where I said, I took this road after doing my drinking, my sex, my drugs, my brother was doing the same thing, my younger brother, and he just kept going. The drugs took a hold of him. Praise the Lord, they did not take it on me. And then my other brother joined the Navy and he wasn't in it as much the way my younger brother and I were. So yeah, he can be very matter of fact and very honest about it. And he's right. But when it opens that wound again, I relive exactly what it was like being at home and dealing with all that. So yeah, we handle it way better. But again, it's an outside force.
And it's an outside force that, it has nothing really to do with Jennifer and I immediate or right in your face, but it's something that affects her heart. And when it affects her heart, and all I see is I want to protect her, then that means get rid of her brother. Just get him out of the picture. And of course, that doesn't go over well because she loves her brother. And, you're balancing this act between enabling and communicating with him. And I just want to say, put the boundary up and protect, and he'll go get help when he's ready to get help. And there's a lot of truths in there, but it doesn't cover over the fact that she still has the pain of going through it.
Right.
It's like accepting what the truth is, accepting what the reality has to be, when it's like, well, we were abandoned as kids. I'm not going to abandon him now. And in reality, it's just a boundary that has to be put up, that you're not abandoning, but you're not enabling. And so that's just one example of a sibling issue that continues to give us fruit.
Yeah. So let's move on past the sad one. And so then another example would be, let's say, a friend issue. I bet there's people out there that are listening who you may not like one of your partner's friends. I mean, I'm just guessing, but that's kind of happened with Michael. He's got a friend that I don't care for very much, and I feel like it takes a lot for me not to really care for somebody, like them. And Michael is a very patient man. He will I feel like people walk all over him. He doesn't see it that way because he's a big boy, and he's like, I know if someone's walking all over me, I'm not going to let it happen. So I believe him in that. But now it's reversed. I want to protect him from this friend that I think just calls him when he needs to for his own reasons and blah, blah, blah. And so in the beginning, when this friend would call, I wouldn't even want Michael talking to him. I'd be like, you don't need to answer that phone. Don't talk to him, blah. And then he'd want to meet him to go eat maybe. And of course, I'm like, honey, you're home for 3 days from this trip. Why are you going to go? Wait till I'm gone, Just everything about this guy then made me kind of be like, ew. So, we kind of have little arguments about that. And now it's gotten to a point where it's not that I don't care, but I have to trust that Michael knows where, obviously, as a 54-year-old man, how to handle his friend and not be taken advantage of, and know where that line is. And so now he doesn't really even tell me when he calls sometimes. And when he does, it's almost a joke because I just make this really funny face and we move on. And, he does his thing. But in the past, that initially would cause some friction because he didn't understand and didn't trust that I trusted his judgment on this friend. Really, I guess, too, is what it was. So, yeah, there's an example of the friend thing.
Yeah.
At least one of them.
Exactly. In some of our previous flights, we've discussed, which if you have either tuned in and heard, or if you're new to the podcast, I had a lot of job issues in the past. I mean, I'm working for a major U.S. carrier now, and it's like a dream job, but I was rejected by several airlines.
Yeah.
And so you think you're on this path to where you want to get. And of course, I'm married, so I want to take care of my wife, and I want her to trust that, this little dream that I'm signed up for is actually going to become a dream. We just have to be patient and let God work his ways. And he did. But when you get rejected by several airlines, you think, holy smokes, this is not going to happen for us. And it did, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was going to be another path. Those are all outside forces that at the time, they are so tough. I mean, we got into more detail about that in the previous podcast. So you can listen to those. Health issues. We've had health issues that we've had to deal with in the past. Some of them are funny. Some of them are not funny at all. But there's financial issues that inevitably come up. It could be with your car, decision that someone wants to buy a new car, someone else doesn't want to buy a new car. You end up buying a new car. You end up maybe bringing a car into a relationship because you now are going to get married. And so now there's an $800 car payment. And so these are the outside forces that literally can disrupt your relationship pretty poorly. again, it all comes back to the communication of how do we deal with this? How do we budget this? And that's just finances. All these factors from finances and friends and jobs
Family.
and it never ends, right? We're on this earth and there's constant
Forces.
forces
I call
that
them bad well, they're not all bad, but just forces.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good that happens, but then there's a lot of challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of them are out of your control. Some of them are in your control that you can adjust and make changes to. But the bottom line is this. Whatever issues come your way, God is going to let you and make you deal with those challenges so that you can grow.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to grow from those places of weakness that you may have. And that's what a relationship does, is it just shines the weaknesses. It just says, there is a major light where the weaknesses, there it is, finances. That's a weakness with Mike, finances, bam. There's a weakness with health, Jen, bam. Whatever it might be. And it might be one way in years 2 through 5, and then in years 5 through 7, it's complete opposite. And the point is, you're constantly being refined, and that's what relationships do, is she refines me, I refine her. And that is like hitting two swords together. It makes a lot of sound, and it can be kind of painful, but you just jump in there and you do it.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you mentioned that. It's funny, I was literally just going to mention God, because if you've listened to past flights, you know, we're both Christians following Christ, putting him first in all things. And so we definitely believe that there are bad spiritual forces that are out there that are trying to tear apart what we have worked very hard for. And we believe it, we've lived it, we live it sometimes daily. So we've also obviously made this commitment, not just with the Lord, but with ourselves, that we need to stay strong. We need to stay strong with our walk with Jesus. And that also helps us handle and tackle these outside forces that try to tear us apart. Because quite honestly, if Satan can tear us apart, then he's now torn apart a whole lineage. He's torn apart our kids, grandkids, everything. Because that's where I come from, torn apart family. And I can go on and on about the dysfunction and the hurts and the torn apartness in our family. So, yeah, that's for sure. But do you want to bring up just our last little thing about how another friend got in?
Well, I'll bring that up a little bit later. I want to expand
really?
a little bit more on how we handle the issues. And you kind of just did. But for those of you who have listened to our previous podcast, we started in counseling 6 months after we got married. And it would have been 6 minutes after we got married, but we couldn't afford it. And so it took us 6 months to just say, okay, it's do or die. This is going to be counseling. Do you want to go to counseling or do you want to eat? I think counseling is more important because otherwise, you know, we had a no divorce policy that we had between us. And there was one way we were going to handle these issues, because in the beginning, it was 2 nuclear weapons hitting each other and colliding with each other. From our first dance to our honeymoon, it was just pretty toxic. It was pretty toxic.
Yep.
And so we needed to handle these issues, these outside forces, by going and getting some help. And so, yes, we are Christians. We decided let's do Christian counseling. And so for those of you out there who are having issues and you just can't seem to work this communication out, get a mediator. We recommend a Christian counselor, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's our recommendation. But at the very minimum, get somebody who will come in and say, okay, Mike, you're thinking this way, and Jen, you're thinking this way, and this is the reality, and you're not thinking right. You know, let a mediator do that. It's not going to work if I tell her she's not thinking right, or vice versa.
Yeah, no way.
Not at all. But because we have this path that we are on with the Lord, and because we believe the Bible, and we believe that it is the intention of the Bible is obviously to keep us out of trouble and to guide us in the direction we should go, we have a guidebook. And when we have a mediator that's using that guidebook, we're going to be on the path. And that's the only reason we're here right now.
It's our manual.
That's the only reason that we're here right now. happily
Literally
married
the only reason.
is because of that. That's it.
And I have
There's
to
no
give
other
you
reason.
the props. I really didn't care. I would have gotten a divorce. You had the no divorce policy, which I just want to give you props to that. And that's sweet you included me. But I mean, I would have just done it.
Well,
So, thank you.
You agreed to it.
Yeah,
You didn't have to agree to it.
That's
so
true. That's true.
yeah. Because when when you get into counseling and you start digging into the weeds with this stuff, you start realizing we look at things differently. And if I look at something differently and I have a different opinion about something than Jennifer does, and you have a mediator, a Christian mediator there that is saying, well, let's see what the word says about it. See what the Bible says about it. And you say, okay, let it be the guide. That's fine. I disagree with you. You disagree with me.
Right.
We need someone who's going to make the decision here. All of a sudden, you just go with it.
Yeah.
You
And
go
it's-
with it. And that's how it's a change of
The
mind.
retraining your mind.
Because so many of these decisions that we have, they're old scars, they're childhood scars.
Yeah.
They're teachings and ways of thinking that we learned from our parents, our grandparents, the society we grew up in, and they're not right. They're wrong. They're simply wrong. And how do we know they're wrong? Because that's what the Word of God says. And so we have a guidebook that sends us in the right path. And that's why we have a happy marriage now. When if we had gone on what we started with and what we just naturally go to, it would be trash.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be total trash.
Yeah.
So let's talk story time now.
Yes.
So you are the one that had all these feelings of
Well, just want me to
tell the story.
Again, Michael's going to have
I
more
might-
PTSD like he always does with the stories. Okay, so this is a friend story, outside force.
This is an outside force.
Yeah, yeah. So
it was a contributor. It wasn't fully everything.
yeah, we don't blame him.
But it was a contributor.
Okay, so we're married. We have little toddlers. And it's Valentine's Day's coming up. Jen has huge, we hadn't worked through this yet in counseling. Again, the kids were little. I had huge expectations of what I thought Valentine's should be. Every year we fought about it. Every year we fought about Valentine's Day. So why should this year be different? I just thought it would. So Michael's going to have to tell a little bit first of his part because it kind of started. And then
I had this great idea
Yeah, okay, yeah, you just
because Jennifer's sensitivity to cold and hot is extremely tight. Like if it's under 73, it's too cold. And if it's over 74, it's too hot. So I know she has high expectations. This is 25 years ago.
Yeah.
On really, I want to try to keep my wife as comfortable as I can do. Like that's my goal here. Remember, that's my goal here is I want to keep my wife comfortable in her temperature range. So you can go on.
Oh, okay. So I don't know any of that because we're not communicating what we're doing for Valentine's.
No,
it's supposed to be a secret.
Gift.
So I get up. It's Valentine's morning. I expect, to see some kind of rose lilies, my favorite, on the island. Cards, just lavish. I don't mean money, but just like pouring out of I love you, you're the best, blah. And I don't remember if there were even flowers because this took control of my mind and I went into a demonic spin. I go out into the garage. No, I'm sorry. We're in the kitchen and we're like, Happy Valentine's Day. And he's like, and I'm looking for some kind of like a present, something.
Mm-hmm.
I see nothing. He's like, go into the garage. And I'm thinking, did he give me a car? Now, we have no money. I mean, we're always in debt back then. So I'm like, he got me a car. So I'm trying not to be mad because I'm like, well, if he got me a car, whatever. So I got in the garage. No, it's my car. It's still my car. It's still his car. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And he's like, watch this. And he takes the keychain and he does like this click and the car starts. And I'm like, okay, so the car started. Wow. In my mind, I'm thinking, I guess that's kind of cool, but I'm still not sure what he's trying to get across. So I'm like, okay, wow, the car started. That's cool. How'd you do that? What's that about? Where's my present? Where's my Valentine's present? And he's like, that's your present.
And I explained to her, this is the way it works.
Frick.
You're inside Target. It's
I was
minus 20 outside. You want to be comfortable when you get to your car and have it be exactly perfect, so you don't have to go out to the cold car and be miserable. My intention was that she would have this lovely little air-conditioned or heated car, and that was way so deep in my heart, at the very, very part where it connects to the middle of my soul, that you're getting like the most thoughtful gift ever. Flowers and a card, big deal. This is from the heart. This is going to be the gift that keeps giving. Summer, winter, you name it. And we had this idiot that happened to be over at the house.
We love him. He's family. No,
And
he lived
he's
with
like,
us. He lived with us.
Whatever.
He was living with us. But before you
He
talk,
probably thought it was the best gift ever, but what did he do?
No. Yeah, so he did like a dagger and just kept twisting. So he lives with us, and I don't even think Michael, what he just explained, I don't even think got all that out. Or if he did, I went just blank because I didn't hear any
She
of
went
that.
blank.
I just started going, that's my present. You got that for me. You got that for you. You're a car guy. I don't care about this. I mean, it went, rah, 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 and we went back and forth. Albert comes out, from the kitchen into the garage. Oops, I said his name. That's okay, Albert. You know the story. So he comes out.
He needs thrown under the bus.
He probably doesn't even listen. So he comes out and he's like, Jenny, I told Michael not to get that for you. That is not a Valentine's gift. That's like getting your wife a vacuum cleaner or, a cleaning tool, whatever.
He just
I
kept
told him not to do that.
pouring it on.
He did.
This bull crap is what it was.
Anyway, I don't think I spoke to Michael. I swear, I think for 3 days minimum. Like I was so hurt and mad and I just couldn't understand it. And finally, when things calmed down and I got back in my headspace and the possession had left my body, we were able to reconnect. I mean, we were going to bed mad. We didn't talk. It was really bad. And he then explained what he just did to you folks, which was the sweet intentionality of that. And it took a long time for me in that fight and in the talking to really see that his intentions, because remember this 25 years ago, we hadn't been through a lot of counseling yet. We had little toddlers at home. There was a lot of chaos all the time. We didn't talk intentionality. We didn't know that. So when he was saying, but this was what I wanted for you. You get cold, you get hot. I wanted you to be so comfortable because you hate living in Georgia at the time, And no offense. And so he would try and really plead his case. And finally, I got it. I finally got it. And the resolution to that was me hugely groveling, apologizing, a lot of tears, probably called each other names like we used to be name callers when we would fight. And that was the last Valentine's we ever celebrated. And that was my choice. Like I said, you know what? I see the flaw in myself. I have unrealistic expectations of you with everything. Now Valentine's. And I'm not going to do this anymore. We will love each other well, 365 days of the year, the best we can. We will celebrate, do other things, surprise each other. But let's just let Valentine's go. Like no cards. We don't, we'll greet each other. Hey, happy Valentine's. But that's really the extent. We don't. We've turned the day that we met on that layover, because it was also in February, we kind of turned that into our own Valentine's. And I told him, I said, I don't want to go to a restaurant with all the other thousands of people that are in love that one day, extra that day. I'm done. For me, I had to stop the expectation. And so
it's
we
a
haven't
huge
had one since.
expectation.
We haven't had one since, and I don't miss it. It's been fine.
Yeah. But all to say, the outside force that day was our friend who maybe didn't understand the depth of the love that I had, and he thought it was funny.
He did.
But more than anything, I think he just wanted to stir the pot. And she hook, line, and sinker took it and it sent her into a crazy headspace.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So it turned out okay in the long run, like most of the time things do, but it was a tough little 72 hours after that. And it was her favorite gift, right? Ever. It was her favorite gift ever.
People literally ask me, what's been your favorite gift? And I'm never good at thinking of things when they ask it was literally the car starter of my whole life. That's
because
my
you think
favorite
about
gift.
it every single time.
And it was one of the biggest fights.
Yep.
I mean,
it was
hilarious, right? So anyway, yes.
Well, folks, that is today's flight. Please send your questions, your thoughts.
Yeah, we love getting your questions.
We love the questions because we like
it. Kind of stirs up.
It does.
How we
it stirs up
remember things. Too,
so, as I said on the last time, I will remind you.
Yeah. Just do
Gear down, cleared to land. If you don't know what that is, listen to the last flight. Gear down, clear to land. See y'all. Bye-bye.